All right, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Stand Tall. It's been a while. I've been out sick, so this episode might be a little rough, but thank you guys for hanging in there with me. So, just going to kind of start from somewhere in the big book, The Army on the March, Chapter 9. We've got a lot left. I think plenty to carry us through October as well. So, while we keep away from such places, verse 16, we should get the enemy to approach them. While we face them, we should let the enemy have them on his rear. So let's go back. 15. Country in which there are precipitous cliffs with torrents running between, deep natural hollows, confined places, tangled thickets, quagmires, and crevasses should be left with all possible speed and not approached. So while we keep away from such places, we should get the enemy to approach them. While we face them, we should let the enemy have those places on his rear. Let's go over to the alternate translation real quick before diving into the wisdom behind this positioning. Let's see. When the trees move. Whenever the terrain has impassable ravines, natural enclosures, natural prisons, natural traps, natural pitfalls, and natural clefts, you should leave quickly and not get near them. For myself, I keep away from these so that opponents are nearer to them. I keep my face to these so that opponents have their backs to them. So Cao reflects that in military operations, always keep away from these 6 kinds of dangerous ground formation, while maneuvering so that your enemy is near them with his back to them. If you have the advantage and he is out of luck. So then you have the advantage and he's out of luck. So always going along with kind of just being aware of where you are and the ground that you're on. I've been listening to a lot of Alex Hormozy lately, probably a little too much, but just I was open to a conversation of a buddy who met with a plumber who is doing 8 million a year in revenue, and kind of the strategy and the tactics behind it. And it just reminded me that like I've gone out onto treacherous ground business wise lately. I've been taking some chances. I've been bidding things higher, and while some of those have been rewarding, it's made me lose sight of other things. And so there's just like these like tried and true paths, like these ways that you need to do, and you can't like lose sight of the fundamentals. Like there's no getting away from it. And so I started to get away from it, and that kind of came back in a negative manner. So always being aware. So we're going to move to October here in the Daily Stoic. I'm sorry for the missed days in September, probably for a good reason, because there's a word in here that is apparently on bleeped on YouTube. So October out of the Daily Stoic is all about virtue and kindness. Pick up a copy of this book if you don't have one yet, guys. It's by far one of the best investments you can make for under $20. October 2nd, the most valuable asset. But the wise person can lose nothing. Such a person has everything stored up for themselves, leaving nothing to fortune. Their own goods are held firm, bound in virtue, which requires nothing from chance, and therefore can't be either increased or diminished. Seneca, On the Firmness of the Wise, 5.4. Some people put their money in assets, stocks, bonds, property. Others invest in relationships or accomplishments, knowing that they can draw on these things just as easily as others can draw funds from a bank account. That's true. Ken Honda talks about the, arigato your money. So when you're thankful for your money and you're nice to your money, it comes back to you. But like also knowing that the relationships are good. If you have about 50 friends or so, you could easily crash on someone's couch every week. 52 weeks in a year. And so you have enough, social wealth, as it were, to get through. So, but a third type, Seneca says, invests in themselves and in being a good and wise person. Which of these assets is most immune to market fluctuations and disasters? Which is most resilient in the face of trials and tribulations? Which will never abandon you? Seneca's own life is an interesting example. He became quite wealthy as a friend of the emperor, but as Nero became more and more deranged, Seneca realized he needed to get out. He offered Nero a deal. He would give Nero all of his money and return all of Nero's gifts in exchange for complete and total freedom. Ultimately, Nero rejected this offer, but Seneca left anyway, retiring in relative peace. But one day the executioners came with their mortal decree. In that moment, what did Seneca rely on? It wasn't his money. It wasn't his friends who, although they meant well, were a considerable source of grief and mourning. It was his virtue and inner strength. It was Seneca's most trying moment, his last and his finest. Yeah, that just goes back to knowing where your position's at and making sure that no matter what you're doing, it's for like that investment in yourself to become the person who can get over the obstacle, who can become the veteran, who can become that tried and hardened and grizzled veteran of business or whatever we're talking about. War is just a metaphor for something that we struggle with through everyday life. War with ourselves, war with others. It's just another name for conflict. So as we navigate this conflict, we're gonna keep that in mind, that the investment in ourselves is definitely the best. There's definitely value in money and property. There's value in friendships and acquaintances and relationships and that sort of thing as well. And while we should focus on all three, we shouldn't lose sight of the third for the first two. And so with that, we'll keep standing tall until the next one.